I don't think that particular song's radio safe. Okay, scrubbing you forever, but
You never
mm,
know. I mean, it was the 80s.
it was the 80s. That's true. And hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Spoiler Room. Thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and grabbing your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. No, there is not Mountain Dew in this glass. This is seltzer and Malibu. So there you go. It's actually
Nice.
it's a nice little spritzer. Yeah, it actually works out fairly well. So and yes, this month is remote control month. Remote controlled is the month, and that's our theme. And today, even though it's from 2013, it is not a perfect 10 film. and there are many reasons why that we will definitely be getting into. But first, I have to introduce I have a crew member who is brave enough to venture with me through this film, and it is none other than the man who is keep coming back for more, Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you?
I almost broke the streak, Mark. 2 hours and 5 minutes with this damn thing.
Dude, when I forgot the runtime, So when I fired it up, I'm looking at it going, let's see. And oh dear God, it's 2 hours and 5 minutes.
When it got to the natural climax of the movie, I was like, whew. And then my mouse hovered over the runtime bar. I'm like, wait, 56 minutes? What?
It's like two movies in one. It really is.
No, it's barely even one movie in one.
It's barely. So, well, I mean,
I'm doing great, by the way. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're doing great. You're so great. I'm sure that you could give us a synopsis of The Host.
Well, it was a really cool. I mean, 2006 was a great year for Korean monster movies, and oh wait, sorry, we're talking about the one from 2013.
Wrong host. Yes, the wrong host.
Yeah, this definitely is the wrong host. I was so excited, Mark, when you said that we were going to be talking about The Host. I didn't put it together that we were talking about this one until much too late, and I was like, oh my God.
You missed it, unfortunately. We did do The Host, but it was before you became an integral part in our podcast. So we did cover that movie, though. Excellent movie, by the way. A lot of fun.
Well, I'll have to watch it my own time and then go back and listen to the episode. But for tonight, let me... I finished watching this movie like 3 hours ago, and I still have to go to the synopsis because I'm like, I don't in one ear and out the other. All right, so Saoirse Ronan, an actress whom I love, she is a tremendous talent. She starred in this movie, which is from the writer of Twilight. That should tell you all you need to know, but I'm going to go further. Stephanie Meyer wrote the quote-unquote book that this quote-unquote movie was based on. There's an alien invasion, and these little squibbly white tendril beings of light came down and took over basically all life, or all human life on the planet. They inserted themselves into human hosts, and basically they got rid of war, famine, dishonesty, like all the bad things in human nature, but they're all just kind of like wandering around, doing their thing. But there are pockets of human resistance who don't want to be taken over. They like their free will. And Melanie Strider, played by Saoirse Ronan, is a teenager.
Yeah, I think.
I mean, she has a lot of sex in this movie, or at least implied.
Like 19, like next month she'll be 20 type of teenager, I think, or 25. Really, actually,
let's just go with that, because the alternate, like the internal monologue when she's talking to the alien version of herself, I'm like, this girl's 12 years old. But but she gets captured in the beginning of the film during some kind of like a resistance raid, and she gets implanted with one of these creatures who calls herself, or is referred to as, Wanda, or the Wanderer. She's 1,000 years old. She's finally been implanted in this new body, and she's learning all about humanity. Melanie / Wanda, it's like a man with two brains situation. They're two personalities vying for control inside this, body. She ends up back in the the hands of the resistance, led by William Hurt. Melanie's younger brother is there. So is hottie Jared Howe, played by Max Irons, who was someone that she and her little brother found, and they ended up like, hey, well, we might have to preserve the human race.
So that's the line you're going with. Okay.
So many lines in this movie. Diane Kruger, the lovely Diane Kruger, plays the Seeker, who is sort of one of the head aliens. She is tasked with tracking down all members of the resistance and essentially wiping them out or forcibly converting them into hosts so that the alien species can have total dominance over the planet. She goes after Melanie. There's resistance versus aliens. There's not a love triangle. It's a bit of a twist from the Twilight thing. There is, a lovely young teenage girl and two hunky, brooding, opposite sides of the tracks or whatever guys fighting for her affection. But instead of a love triangle, it's a love square, because Jared is in love with Melanie, but Ian, I'm embarrassed to share a name with a character in this movie, played by Jake Abel, is in love somehow with Wanda. Yes, the alien trapped inside of Melanie's body.
Yes.
Can this just be like a 10-minute episode, Mark? We should get in and out of this thing. Help me out, man.
Yeah. Okay, remember last week I said, well, every film that I looked at for remote controlled month involved horror, being a horror film. But one of the reasons I picked this was because it's been a really long time since I watched it. And I'm like, I don't think that was actually a horror film. And no, this is not a horror film. Maybe horror in other ways, but it is not a horror film. Yeah, it's by the writer of Twilight, and this literally feels like I mean, basically take the relationship dynamic you have in Twilight and just add a second female in it. That's it. It's otherwise it's the same thing. I mean, the thing is, it came out in 2013. There was the big craze of the young adult movies going out, and you're coming off. I think Twilight had just finished, or when was the final Twilight film?
If you want, I could go check my Blu-ray collection upstairs.
Okay,
I'll leave it to you to find out if I'm joking.
I don't think you are joking. I'm just trying to decide if that is your collection or your wife's collection. So
usually you think it would be, Mark.
I was
Team Edward all the way. Sorry.
Team Edward. Oh my God. They don't sparkle. They don't and then you know why they sparkle? Because when you kill them, they shatter into glass. So at least there's that explanation, which makes no sense. But anyway, sorry, that's a whole nother. What was that? The Rising Ass? No, Rising Dawn. Rising Dawn.
Breaking Dawn.
Rising.
The Rising Ass. I'd like to watch that movie.
Rising Dawn, Breaking Ass.
There's Breaking Dawn parts 1 and 2. This is firmly in the epic book series. We got to split the last chapter into 2 to make more money.
Yes. Okay. So this literally came out a year after Breaking Dawn Part 2. So they're riding that Twilight wave. The author, she's like, yeah, surfing with that money, regardless of how bad she makes people look, doesn't care. Woohoo! And so she has this other book, The Host, and they adapt that because the producer's like, holy shit, Twilight making money. We got our demographic. Let's keep going with it. And they come out with this, and they give you The Host, which has a lot of talented people in it. But it shows that even talent can't always save a script that doesn't know what the hell it wants to be. It's set in the okay. So we start out, we get the Mr. we get the voiceover, excuse me, Ms. voiceover about about how the Earth was taken over by the aliens. And when we find out from the aliens, they take over their brain, but the people could still be inside. And we find out, spoiler, near the end, that's true. Everybody is actually still alive inside. They're just kind of locked away while the alien personality takes over remote controls and drives the body around with these piercing blue eyes that Meg Foster would go, damn, those are some blue eyes. But the main of many issues that I had is there's a lot of potential here. You've got a great cast. You've got an interesting concept. The reason my name there on the tag for those who watch the live stream is No Soul is, yes, Robert Baum was correct. It is a reference to Don No Soul Simmons from Amazon Women on the Moon, but it's also referred to the fact that these aliens are referred to as souls that take over the body. Did I miss it, Ian? I was trying to figure out the motivation of the aliens for doing this,
for taking over
the bodies, because they've taken over bodies across the galaxy. Apparently 12 planets they've taken over where they've co-hosted the bodies. And here, go figure, humans are the most difficult. Of course we are. But I didn't pick up the motivation. I'm like, because in all honesty, outside of you not having control over your body, it seems like it was a pretty good deal. I mean, you didn't even have to pay for your groceries, which were all in generic labels.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's an interesting concept. I would think that the reason that they did this is it's what they do as a species, right? It's interesting that we don't get there are a couple of different things in here that I thought were done pretty well, at least in terms of ideas, because the Wanda character, when she's interrogated, she says that she is over 1,000 years old, but her alien species has only conquered 12 planets.
Right.
Usually when you see you hear Independence Day or the Borg or something, they've conquered 5,000 planets across the galaxy, and it's a big threat. 12 planets doesn't sound that bad, but we never flash to see any of those planets. We never see any of those other species coming down to Earth with them or them inhabiting them on planet Earth. Now, maybe that's because the conditions wouldn't be conducive to those host bodies or whatever. But my theory is they go and they take over a planet and they take over the population, and then they just kind of wear them out, and then they have to leap on to the next planet, right? It might not be malicious necessarily, but if they because I don't know exactly how they reproduce.
Right.
We never get into that. So it could be that maybe they jump into human bodies, but they can't mate with each other or whatever, so that they just have to go find someplace else to perpetuate their forms, right? Yeah, there's a lot of good things to think about in this movie. It's just wrapped up in this bullshit, badly done teen romance.
Right. And that was the problem I had with it I don't have anything against a romantical film, regardless of what people might think. I don't have anything against a romantical film. I enjoy a number of them. I mean, Moulin Rouge is one of my favorite films. Heartbreaking, but still. Anyway, that's a romantical film. But the problem that I had with The Host is it's kind of like you're traveling on a train or on a tram that you can't get off of, and you see really good ideas, and there they go. The world that they build, the idea, the concept of these aliens, the fact that they're called souls, the fact that they're in the body with the person that they're inhabiting, the mental waveform, whatever, that person's also in there with the aliens. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff to explore that they kind of gloss over to this love thing that really is. I'm just like, we're going here. I want to see more of this. I want to see the seekers. I want to see this hierarchy that they have amongst these aliens that are taking over the humans, because it felt like that. You had the Seekers and they're interrogating the Wanderer. You almost felt like the Wanderer was a lower tier in their society or whatever than, the Seekers. And then who's above the Seekers? I mean, there's a lot of really great things to explore that just kind of get abandoned for, oh, don't you kiss him? No, don't you kiss him? Don't kiss him. Why are you kissing him? It's like a virtual Siamese twins trying to carry on a relationship.
It's worse than that, because I think part of this is, it's a limitation of what the actress is called upon to do. I'm
Right.
not going to say
Mhm.
that Saoirse Ronan is a bad actress, because she's proved in other films that she's not. Quite the opposite. But the thing is, she's Irish, and she's got a very distinct Irish accent.
Yes.
So in the alien voice, she's just kind of got this flat, generically American accent. But when she's in the Melanie voice, I think we established that Melanie was from Louisiana initially.
Yes, yeah.
She's got this overdone, like, generic Southern American twang accent. I'm like, but it's not even consistent, because sometimes she's like, "Don't you dare kiss him," and then sometimes like, "You've got to let him go." I'm like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, because actually it surprised me. The only time I even really noticed the accent was there's one scene right after the one guy, Ian, was showing interest. Is like,
That wasn't
nah,
me, by the way.
no, not this Ian. She's like, it was probably the most striking, the most realized that she had a Southern accent was, and you better keep it that way. I mean, like literally like that twang. I'm like, wait, when did she become Southern? And I'm like, oh wait, no, she's been down that all along. It just wasn't as evident as when she threatened Wanda. And that's like the only time it really ever comes out. Otherwise it doesn't.
It's if you're listening for it, which I was, because I had nothing else going on watching this
Yeah.
movie, it's completely inconsistent. There's like
It
3
is,
different
okay.
accents.
Uh-huh.
They should have just let her use her Irish accent, because it's
Why
so
not?
lovely.
See, and that's one of those cases where I'm like, why couldn't you? Especially when you do sci-fi films, and especially you're doing something like this to where she's a rebel who's separated from the aliens, she's fighting the alien. Why not just let her have her own natural accent? Because there's absolutely nothing in this film that says she has to be from the West or America.
It's just one line of dialogue, I grew up in Louisiana after my parents moved here from Ireland.
Oh,
and it would probably sound about that convincing too if I was doing it,
yeah.
for real. But yeah, it's just 10 seconds, just establish that she's not from Louisiana, she's from somewhere else. But
This is like the softest, most kid glove post-apocalyptic alien invasion story I've really ever watched, because it and that's the thing is I understand. I understand it's trying to kind of be the teenage romance or whatever, the young person's romance over the supposed apocalyptic thing, but they don't give you enough even from the post, at least the other ones, even if they weren't that good, like was it Allegiant or whatever it was, that the series that came out, Divergent.
yeah.
It wasn't really that great. The movies weren't. I was told the books were far better, but at least there they even established though that, kind of the rules of the world and kind of how the class system was, and why these people were really rebelling, and what is the bad thing. And granted, okay, loss of free will, I get it, but at the same time, they do make a point for like 5 seconds in this film of, well, we improved your world, we improved the environment, there's peace, there's no greed. They literally don't have a financial system. You could literally, if you got the blue eyes and go up to someone and go, hey, I really need to borrow your car, you can just borrow the car, because the guy's like, okay, because they apparently don't lie to each other, which lasts about an hour and a half in the film.
Well, but the problem there is that, yeah, it's great for the aliens because they get to walk around these
Right.
cool bodies and have a peaceful society. But the people that used to own those bodies are either completely subsumed or they're stuck in a prison
And,
of this personality that's not their own.
and I get that, but it never they talk about it. I never feel it get that heavy or give the weight that type of concept really should. And I
Well,
don't know if
they get damn close at the end when the seeker, spoilers, when they take the alien out of the seeker's body, and Diane Kruger gives, a tremendous 45-second performance
right,
coming out of it, and she was like, oh my god, you could tell that she was trapped in like this
right.
hell for a number of years, not being able to control, her will wasn't her own. Yeah, but there are the ideas are there, but a lot of these avenues are unexplored. And I was thinking to myself this entire time, like I like to see the adult targeted version of this movie
Mhm.
with the same cast, a much better script, and none of this sappy teen romance. Because yeah, the voiceover bit where it's like, Wanda and Melanie are talking to each other back and forth. It's not even CW. It's like,
Oh,
Nickelodeon, Disney Channel nonsense. Like that is, I would say, performed terribly. But again, it just sounds like they stuck her in a voice recording booth and said, "Here, read these lines, be really expressive without any context."
well, yeah. I mean that is the tough part. And again, I understand that's supposed to be the focus, but at the same time, what you've created here is of interest and has so much potential to explore a lot of other things. And you could still keep the romance part in here, but really dive deep into it. I mean, William Hurt's in a different film. His character I love his character. I love the dynamic of the rebels. I loved that part of it. I wanted to see more kind of that instead of the love square, like you put it, between our three young folks, because that got tiresome.
Mark, I'm going to say something that's people are going to say it's too soon, but I'm going to say it anyway. I think this movie took about 10 years off William Hurt's life.
Ooh.
Sorry.
But I I'm like, I seeing William Hurt's Jeb though, I'm like, I want to follow that character. I want to follow him and the challenges he has. And maybe they do it better in the book. The challenges he has of trying to keep this rebel group together, and also this conflict he has that his niece is also, now a soul possessed person. There's a lot of stuff in there that they touch on, but then they're like, and now back to the romance. It's like we get this little bit nugget of stuff, and now back to the romance where they're debating in their heads whether or not who they should kiss.
Yeah, where are they? Are they in like Utah or something? I don't know. This giant like mountain
I
formation
think,
where
yeah,
they've got these caverns where they built a Wrath of Khan style Genesis cave, which is really cool. Except again, I'm thinking, no, I need some more backstory here because they have this elaborate like solar panel lined. I mean, they're mirrors and everything, but they can control them to like hide their location. I'm like, how the hell did I know? Michael Jed's a genius. I'm like, well, there's a difference between being a genius and having like Elon Musk levels of resources to build your, mountain utopia in the middle of an alien invasion. I don't know what the hell was going on there, but I would love to see that story.
I would love to see that story too of how they. But that's the thing too. I would love to see the story of this group of rebels, though I'm going to say it, and people can call me whatever names. I would have liked to see more diversity within this group of colonists. Only because, in all honesty, I couldn't tell one one so quote unquote teenage boy from the other. I'm like, wait, is that is that is that Ian, or is that Jared? Or wait, no, is that the guy that wants to kill her that's neither Jed Jared or Ian, but I can't tell.
I mean, there was actually, if you look for it, there's a lot of diversity in this cast. It just happens to be more in the adult spectrum.
Oh, okay, that's true.
You know, it's like in the alien overlords, in the rebels that the two rebels that get chased out on that highway or whatever, and they end up out of bullets and they run their car or their truck into the concrete wall. I laughed on impact. I straight up like guffawed.
I did too, because I'm like, wait, that's your solution? Not let's try to take out as many as we can. You've got a truck, they've got cars. You could at least try to ram these guys or whatever. But no, you're going to go and smash yourself into the wall of a divider, which we've proven might not necessarily keep you from being possessed, as we found out with our opening action sequence with Wanda slash Melanie, you know, where she jumped out a window and the doctor literally says nearly every organ and bone exploded and every bone broken, yet she's still alive. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, she looked really good for that being the case. Like, I mean, she had some scratches on her and everything, and it was kind of a cool effect the way the camera moved around, so that when the alien was implanted, you see that she's perfectly pristine and healed and everything.
Yeah.
But here's a question, Mark: how do the aliens build those spaceships?
Oh, you mean the little pods?
Yeah, how do they build anything? They're like the little squibbly, like.
Well, no, they controlled beings that helped build those things. That's how that worked.
I guess.
You know, that's how they were. Well, and they also, like I said, they also touch on. It's mentioned a couple of times on how the humans are the first alien race out of the apparently the 12 planets they've conquered that is the most resistant to them being taken over. They don't understand why. I'm like, so you took over 12 other subservient planets that just are like, yeah, take my body, please. You know, but humans, we're the garbage of the galaxy, apparently.
Right, but it just opens up all these other questions. Like, again, how do they build the spaceships? I mean, you're not going to be able to build manufacturing and hyperdrive systems and all that stuff just being like these little light beings. You're going to need something with hands, ostensibly, to manufacture these crafts, right?
Well, and not only that, but the crafts seem to be guided by this light map. That's where they land. Now, I don't know if that's where they always land, if they just get jettisoned, and when they get to a new planet, they just get dumped somewhere until someone happens upon their little pod, opens it, and then they just kind of go all
like face huggery, yeah,
like face huggery. They don't even say that. All they say in the opening is that these aliens took over the planet, and I'm just like, okay, how? And then apparently travel takes a while, which again, theory of relativity, I understand that, but they talk about how this 1,000-year-old alien, they're gonna near the end, they come up with this way where they discover that, oh yeah, we don't have to kill the aliens, we can extract them and just send them on their way, and then the other humans come back. So they come up with that because apparently the other aliens either didn't know or didn't tell them, whatever. But still, when they put them in their little pods to send them on their way, they have to have this star map received. It looks like there's like no other like mothership that brought the initial delivery of the beings. And even if they did, it looks like they have to go in through a slice in the back of the neck. They can't just like crawl in through your nose or, you know, down your mouth like a face hugger. They have to have a slit in the back to where they apply themselves to your spinal cord. I'm like, well, how'd the first ones do that then? You know, how did this invasion start?
I don't know. Also, I totally lost my train of thought.
Well,
oh no, I remembered now. There's this one scene where Melanie slash Wanda encountered the lab where the Resistance had captured some of the blue-eyed, some of the hosts and extracted the aliens from them, and they were like all set on a tray, and they're all like
dead,
cut up and stuff, and
Yeah.
she was like recoiled in horror. But William Hurt's like, what do you expect us to do? It's like an alien invasion. We don't want to get taken over. We got to learn about your kind. But yeah, I don't know how
Well,
these things are supposed to work. But they say towards the end, like, oh, the big secret is, did you know that you don't need to forcefully extract them? You can like coax them out with love or some nonsense. I'm like, but
kindness.
kindness, okay, but they're talking about the seeker. Now, the seeker, even though it's in the body and has the mannerisms of Diane Kruger, it's still a malevolent alien with, this single-minded mission. How are you going to coax the villain out with love or kindness?
Well,
Here, come here, pretty villain. We're gonna put you in a spaceship and send you off into the stars. We know you can hear us and understand us, but
well,
there's no resistance. There was no fighting. Oh, they're showing me kindness. I'll just get in the craft.
well, that's the whole confusing part with this is there's no real rules set. And I know it sounds weird, but when you have a film like this, you need to establish at least a few set of base rules. And that's where I was saying is these aliens improved Earth. Yes, they're taking over your free will. And of course, you could get into the philosophical debate of the loss of free will versus improving the planet, which they touch on for literally 1 minute before we get back again to the romance part and how she doesn't want Wanda taking her body to Ian. So we touch on that thing, but still it's like, well, what do these guys come down, improve the planet, and then they just eventually fuck off or whatever, and they go, there you go, we improved your planet, peace out. It sounds like they said conquer, but I'm like, but you get coaxed out by kindness. You're a being of pure light. And just because you put a slit in the neck and you're kind brings the alien out. I mean, you put yourself in there because you wanted to take control of this planet for whatever motivation, improving it or whatever, so you could live here. And now you're just going to, and they say they've been doing it for months and coaxing these things out for months. And I'm like, so the aliens just are going willingly? They're like, oh, yeah, okay, you found us out. We'll take off now.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, even like they had a few of those aliens. I don't know if they're experimenting with them simultaneously, but you'd think if they were captured by your enemy and tied down in a lab table or something, you're like, oh, there goes Jeff onto that. They're taking him out of the host. They did it with kindness because he fell for it, but I'm not going to fall for it. I'm going to, another possibility would have been, make these classic movie villains where they think they're doing the right thing. Kind of like what happened with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where, spoiler alert, Kang the Conqueror, when he's talking to Michelle Pfeiffer, he's like, oh yeah, I've been around and gone to all these different planets and everything's great, and then she gets a glimpse of what he thinks greatness is, and it's like death and the destruction everywhere. Wouldn't it be wonderful if the aliens were like, oh yeah, we improve all the planets we come to, and then at the end it turns out that they just leave everything like a smoking husk of a shell, and that's why they need to be stopped, because they're not really as altruistic as they claim they are.
Right. And maybe in the hands, and I always hate, I try to be positive and such, but maybe in the
Why?
hands
No.
of a different writer, you could have had that more established. And they're again hinting, it gets hints at it that they're thinking they're improving the lives of these aliens, and like, oh, hey, what's a little free will when we completely healed your planet? You've got no war, greed, whatever. It's all a kumbaya, type of society. Yeah, you don't necessarily have your free will, but hey, it's just go along for the ride. Just sit back, let me take the wheel, type of thing. But you never really explore that too much. Even the corruption, let's put it this way, of the seeker. the Seeker, who is Diane Kruger's character, who is different than the other aliens, but the other aliens are so passive. They're just like, she's on a bender. Okay, whatever. Yeah, I mean, didn't it feel like that? I mean, here one of them is actually getting angry. Here one of them is actually grabbing a gun, which apparently, they're not really supposed to be violent, so they aren't gun. Even in the beginning, when we see them trying to capture Melanie, they have their sprays out like they're going to knock her out. They're not going to actually hurt her. They want to spray her to knock her out.
And it says peace on it, so it's like a peaceful
Yeah.
knockout gas. It's also kind of a giveaway at the end where, oh my God, the four hero teens are out joyriding through the city, and they get pulled over by the aliens, and it turns out that they're also resistance fighters. I'm like, why did you think that it was okay to go joyriding in the city? Like, you're out in the desert, you're ostensibly on a wanted list of some kind, like somebody knows you're out there. On top of that, at one point, Melanie goes back into the town to get some medicine for her younger brother. I guess the alien civilization can travel light years and colonize planets and build amazing silver sports cars and helicopters, but they don't really have a criminal database or surveillance systems. Like, hey, doesn't this person look exactly like the one that our Seeker disappeared trying to find?
See, and that's what I found where it contradicts itself, because these aliens play themselves off as believing everybody's peaceful. And they think in all honesty, they think she is one of them, even though, you would think there's a facial recognition thing because she's supposedly, missing. But I think what they were going for is these aliens are so passive that they don't care, because they think it's so insignificant that the only person really looking for Melanie is the Seeker. She calls the other ones out there. They listen to her. They obey. They came out. They half-assed their search. Seeker is like out there. Diane Kruger, her character's like, I saw a fucking mirror right there. They're right there. And then they fly over. The guy doesn't even go in the direction she points. He just flies over a motorcycle, which the guy's like, yeah, hey, how you fucking doing? You bunch of morons. And they're like, yeah, see, they aren't out here. And then they're like, well, even if they are out here, they're going to die. So, why are you going after them, Seeker?
Which is a great question. Like, is this a personal vendetta? Is she on orders from somebody else? Like, what is her deal, really?
Well, and they try to play that off, but it still didn't quite make sense to me when the Seeker goes back to her pod. They get her out, and boom, Lacey appears. I think that was her name. Lacey was the human's actual name. When she comes out, she's like, oh, I've been screaming for years. And then Melanie goes, oh, so that's why you were seeking me out. And I'm like, I'm trying to draw line A to B, and there's a wall in the way of A to B going, what? I'm like, why would her screaming be driving, and I don't need everything explained to me. I'm not like that. I don't mind not having my handhold, but at the same time, you're going to drop something like that to say for the motivation of the Seeker breaking protocol and being different than the other Seekers who are being all passive. And you're just going to breeze by like, well, my yelling in the Seeker's ear or in the head for like years is the reason why she went after you. And I'm like, that makes no sense. I could see if, it drop a line at least that the Seeker thought that if she could kill Melanie, it would silence the voice in her head. Maybe give me some kind of line or something like that. But all she says is, yeah, yelling for years. And Melanie's like, oh. And you're like, and you're just like, oh.
Let's right around this time is when Melanie is laying on the table. The doctor is about to kill her per her own request, and she's lying there giving this monologue, and she's like, I want to die. I've been waiting millennia for this to be over. And I said, truer words have never been spoken, sister. But So she blacks out. When she comes to, she wasn't expecting to be alive, but she is. And there's Melanie. She holds up a mirror, and all of a sudden, it's lovely Emily Browning staring back at us. Another actress that I love, who is absolutely slumming it in this picture. But it's weird because Melanie gets to be with Troy or Jake, what the hell his name was. I don't know. The one
Melanie
guy
gets to play Jared.
Jared, okay.
Just Jared.
Just Jared. It could only be Jared.
he's not possessed, so he's by a soul. So he's just Jared. So.
I thought the same thing when he first started acting. But anyway, so then Wanda ends up with Ian. And I just thought it was so strange because a bunch of teenage kids or whatever, and no one is weirded out. I guess the whole underlying message is it's not what you look like on the outside, it's all about what's on the inside. I'm like, bullshit. Like if I'm going out with Saoirse Ronan and all of a sudden this other, again, short brown haired attractive teenager or whatever shows up, it's going to take a while to get used to being in love with someone who looks completely different than the person you thought she was 2 weeks ago.
It's not the looks, Ian. They looked inside in the soul, and it's the soul that he was attracted to. The young, virile young man, he was attracted to her soul and the personality, and not the looks.
Let's put that shit to the test, Mark. How about they transplant Wanda into the body of Uncle Jed? Get to see them making out at the end of the movie. Yeah,
kiss me, you fool, kiss me.
Double date, driving downtown.
Now I want to see that.
No, I don't think William Hurt making out with a young teenage boy is not a good look.
And again, I understand it's supposed to be a quote unquote teen romance novel or young, 20-something romance story. But there was another opportunity for you to really spin things on your head and have Wanda just be pissed and upset and crying that they didn't actually kill her. Because she plays it off fairly quick. She's like, well, the doctor, you broke your promise. He's like, well, no, they actually did. And then they give this wonderful convoluted way of, well, you see, we've been freeing people for months. So you're like, so they've been keeping the Wanderer in a pod for months, and the Wanderer wasn't aware that she was in the pod for months. Well, we've been doing this for months, and this one, after we freed the alien, her personality didn't come back, so we just dumped you into this corpse.
You see, Mark, here's the thing. This ties directly into The Hidden, which we talked about last week.
Yes, right?
Where it's at the very end, the human body is dying, so the alien altruistically takes possession. It's kind of the same thing here, except the alien was put, unbeknownst to them, into a dying body. Right. Now, there's another theme in the movie we're talking about next week, I believe, Upstream Color. I'm starting to think, instead of remote controlled, you should just call this series Roofied by Aliens, because that's what it's turning out to be.
Alien Roofie. I should change the theme of the month to Alien Roofie. Yeah, that's the thing is that was the frustrating thing with watching this film, because being a science fiction fan and having watched many a science fiction film, there's some very interesting avenues you could take with this story that they establish if you weren't trying to remind people, oh, hey, no, this is a romance story. I'm like, I would have liked her to write something that didn't necessarily, like I said, have at the end the big twist that Wanda is actually freaked out and pissed and goes running off, that she's still alive when she asked them specifically, kill me. It's been 1,000 years. I am done.
Oh, shit. You could have her turn and go back to her own kind, saying, oh, this is what you do with your free will. You take away the free will of other people. Wow.
Right. Right.
That sets up a trilogy. I mean, the thing is, this movie was another one of the long piles of franchise non-starters.
Yeah.
There's that whole thing at the end, they find more resistance teenagers like themselves.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, we've been discussing this this evening. It's too dumb to be science fiction for anybody who's into science fiction to show up, because they're going to say, what are the rules? You're breaking all your canon. None of this makes sense. And it's all just devolving into sappy romance. The teens who are into sappy romances, like, what's with all this sci-fi bullshit? Like, Twilight worked because it was mostly about teens in high school, or
Right.
after getting out of high school,
Well,
and then they get in the larger world of like, oh, those vampire council conspiracies. But by then you already got them hooked.
right, but also in the Twilight films, and I don't believe I'm actually defending these things, but in the Twilight films, the vampire and the werewolves play so much more an integral part in the overarching story and the world, and you're explored, and there's in that she set up better rules. In the first film, now I didn't read the books, but even in the first film, you got some rules established with the vampires, with the werewolves, why they hate each other. You got you got, why they don't like, why, most of Edward's family looks at Bella like, dude, that's like brunch. Why are you playing with your food, dude? Um, you know, uh, they establish at least some rules in the world, where in here that's even abandoned to where, you know, and again, I'm trying to put myself in, maybe this didn't even appeal really to the younger crowd when it came out. It literally has like a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, for whatever that's worth. It's not well rated or received. Some people say it was a decent adaptation of the book. I'm like, oh, that I'm not sure what that's telling of the book. But again, there's if it wasn't supposed to be a romance story, there's a lot of interesting things in here. Existential descriptions you could get in here, philosophical stuff. You could even the world of how the humans, how the aliens pass the humans off so much passively, and that was another thing where it contradicted itself. They're not important enough to go looking. But if they come into town and they take some supplies out to their dying people, well, then we've got to have the cops and we've got to cut them off and we've got to take them. Why? Even if they steal some of those supplies, eventually, according to what everything they say, they're going to die out, or at least start having the hills have eyes type of offspring. But, uh, you
Well,
know,
but that's the other thing, is like, that didn't even make sense, because like, if you have, you know, like 5 women of childbearing age, and at least, at least one guy, they're not going to die out necessarily, right? They can reproduce and keep this thing going, and through the generations even come up with a good little rebellion.
Well, that's what they were trying to do, is I guess, is cut their supplies off so they wouldn't feed so they would starve. That's why it's the big surprise of the Genesis cave, where he's growing wheat in the cave based off of reflective mirrors.
I know, but that's the other problem. You talked about the lack of diversity in the movie. This is another one of those obnoxious post-apocalyptic narratives where, like, the middle of America is mankind's last hope. Like, is there no other pockets anywhere else on the globe, like maybe a deep jungle somewhere, where you could have people who could live off the land? There's water and
Well,
vegetation and stuff.
well, that's what got me too with the ending of this film, is the fact of when they run across the other group, who also just happened to have one member who was a turned soul alien for the other side, just like their pod. Um, you know, they dropped the line of, "Oh, we thought we were the only pod of resistance left." And I'm like, it's a big world. And I understand these aliens took over a lot of it, but are you guys that naive to where you think you're the only ones in the world? Because I'm like, you haven't had any attempt to steal a radio so you could go talk to someone else via ham radio. Where was, you know?
Well, this movie also has. I know we're winding down here, but I feel like I could talk
No,
about all the
no.
problems in this thing forever. Um, it oddly feels like a COVID movie, because if you'll notice,
It does.
there are so many
Yes.
scenes. There's only a couple of scenes I feel like in this movie where there's more than like 5 people in the frame at a time.
Mhm.
It's very much, I don't know if it was what it was going on. Maybe it was a budget. Like, we spent all this money hiring Saoirse Ronan and Diane Kruger that, we're going to make the most out of having people stand in the middle of a dusty road and like have 4 people in the shot, like talking to each other for 10 minutes. Like, it just feels so damn cheap.
It
They're
does.
all kind of socially distanced. Yeah.
I mean, the movie got interesting at the very end when they meet the other resistance folks, because you get Bokeem Woodbine showing up in here, and I'm like, where was he for the rest of this movie?
It reminded me of a movie that came out a few years after this that I was blown away that it got no play. Like, it flopped hard, and I thought it was great. It was called Kin.
Oh yeah,
And it was, and at the very end of that movie, the aliens from the future step out and they take their space motorcycle helmets off, and one of them is Michael B. Jordan. It's like, what the hell? Because it was supposed to be like, oh, now we're going to start this franchise, and it never went anywhere. Like, I would have loved to have seen that series, unlike this one.
Well, and yeah, you could tell they were trying to jumpstart another one, but this I remember it flopping quite a bit. People are just like, what? Because it was probably rushed. You're right. They didn't get a whole lot of money behind it, but they probably rushed it because, oh, hey, we could tag it as from the author of Twilight, and that will get the butts in the seats, regardless of how good or bad it is. And then we could, take it as it will down the road. Once this takes off, then we can do the next one and be good. It's just like you mentioned it, Kin 4. Remember, I Am 4?
I Am Number 4. That was another movie I really liked.
I loved I Am Number 4. I'm like, and then I realized that there was a series of books, and I'm like, yeah. And then they went nowhere because they talked about pre-production of the next, as it was going to be like a trilogy at least of 4, 5 and 6. And
it's funny. Because I was looking at on Amazon, they have a little pop-up trivia. Diana Agron, who was at the time was one of the stars of Glee and was the main female lead in I Am Number 4. She auditioned for the role of Melanie / Wanda in this movie. Yeah. But it's just something about this time, because I think one of the reasons this thing flopped is there was a saturation of the young adult novel adaptation, because you've got Twilight, as we mentioned. This was the year after the Hunger Games came out and a year before Divergent. So when you no matter what you think of all those other movies, I was a big fan of Divergent. I hated the next 2 movies, but I think Divergent is the perfect thing where it's like, it's a film that's meant to set up a franchise, but at the end you just leave it as a cliffhanger and never explore the story anymore. But as like a positive thing, I think it works great as a standalone movie with a big mystery at the end. But you've got that and the Hunger Games. This, if you don't have a smart story and you don't have a compelling romance, you need to at least have some good action behind it, or it has to be so bad that it's funny. This just fails to tick any of those boxes.
It does. And again, for me, that was the toughest part. Is I really wanted to like this film because watching it, I loved the concepts. It doesn't do anything. It just devolves into this romance thing, and they touch a little bit with the alien part, but it really just kind of you're like, why am I? What is the purpose? Because there kind of is an arc. Not really, because Wanda's sympathetic to the humans to begin with, or develops halfway through. She becomes sympathetic to the humans. So you're like, okay, so she's going to join the rebellion, and they're going to put raids out on their headquarters, and maybe turn other souls and get all that. And instead we get, oh, don't kiss him. Oh, I can't hear Melanie anymore. Kiss me. No, kiss me like you want to be slapped.
Which, very, very Harvey Weinstein-esque line. Anyway,
well, let's not forget that when let's not forget that when they're talking and she says Melanie's not here, and he's like, "Oh, this isn't working. Hold on." He goes, gets the other guy to come in and kiss the girl. It was really awkward. I'm like, if this was adults, this is still either way. I'm like, this is just weird.
They didn't have any cars out in the desert, but they were about to run a train. What? Sorry.
Snowpiercer.
Oh, Ho Piercer. What?
Wow. And we went there, folks. Huzzah.
I'll drink to that.
I'll drink to that too. No, yeah, this is one of those things to where a lot of interesting ideas, unfortunately, they don't really go anywhere, and the resolution is convoluted. Really, it's like because they don't. And again, the problem is rules aren't established. There's just ideas thrown out, but there's no real semblance of structure for this sci-fi world. It's just the backdrop for the triangle between Jared, Ian, and Melanie. Well, the square and Wanda, because it's like, okay, how long have they been here? They don't go into how long these aliens have been trying to take over humans. Obviously, it's long enough to create this star grid that they could transport other, and they've worked their way into society enough to where all brands are gone. So Disney didn't like this film. So, you had a whole warehouse of generic labels, where people were smiling that you took stuff. It's just this amalgamation of ideas that are the sole purpose of this world is to set as a backdrop for an odd romance story. That's all it really is intended. And it's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of cool things that could have been explored. And maybe they were in the book, but and maybe it's the adult heavy sci-fi guy in me, but I'm like, there's some heavy concepts you could cover in here that they blow over in like a few minutes, and that's it. We're gone.
Right, and that's the thing is, like, we grew up watching movies that were strange, romantic, sci-fi heavy, probably cheesy and dated by today, but that gave you a firm balance. The thing I think about is The Last Starfighter.
Yeah,
it's a great teen romance, but it's not a teen romance at the expense of the science fiction. It's the science fiction woven into this, story that evolves. I gotta watch that movie again.
Yes, you do. You do.
But there are all different kinds of these films back in the 80s that I think helped us become smart kids, and also emotionally intelligent, to use a phrase that I can't stand. Whereas this stuff, I don't know. It's just kind of junky. Like, let's talk about briefly, Melanie, something that you mentioned. We were talking about the kind of like, oh, kiss me, or I don't know if I want to BS romance stuff, and the voices in her head. That's not even the same character we get when we first meet her at the beginning of the movie, where she's like fighting off people and like running and hurtling herself out a window to escape. Like, that's a fighter. That's a scrapper. That's not some like, oh, I wonder if he's going to kiss me, and you better not lay your hands on him. He's my man. Like, oh, no, it's not the same person.
Yeah, don't kiss him. Why are you kissing him? Don't kiss him. Don't you dare kiss. I'm like, there's really no fire there, outside of her taking control of Wanda's hand twice to slap someone.
Right, but like, we meet at the beginning of this movie, we meet Katniss Everdeen, and when she wakes up as an alien, all of a sudden it's Betty and Veronica.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, she really doesn't seem like they play her off as being so tough. She jumped through a window, all her guts exploded, and bones are broken, yet she's still alive. Fighter. And yeah, unfortunately, they write the hidden inner monologue of her debating with, Wanda, uh, and she's totally different character. It's like this is not the rebel fighter who literally was going to take on 7 guys and threw herself from a window so she wouldn't be taken over. I'm like, this is not that person, because yeah, you're right. It's like, oh, don't kiss him. Oh, you better not kiss him. You better not use my body to kiss him. No. And what are you doing? What are you? And the even bigger thing than that, what got me is I'm like, she's in her head, so they couldn't have an inner monologue with each other. The only way Wanda could talk to the voice in her head is by speaking out loud all the time. And I'm like, she's in your head. Why don't you just think? But no, you don't. You speaking out loud constantly, and your would-be boyfriends are like, I'm guessing Melanie doesn't want us to do this. What the
It's totally batshit crazy.
It is. And we'll wrap it up here. My thought on it is, it's a film that has some interesting, wonderful, actually, science fiction ideas and concepts, but they are all sacrificed just to be a romance film. There is no reason for this movie to be set against an apocalypse. This literally could have been one instance of an alien taking over one person, and they could have had the whole storyline between these 3 and the romance and everything without the apocalyptic part of it. This didn't need to be apocalypse, right? It could have been the start of the invasion, maybe. I don't know. There's a lot of great ideas and concepts that just get abandoned or blown over or are so surface level. It's like, why did you even bring it up?
Yeah, I want to. There's way more questions than answers. We're not going to get them.
Oh no,
here, obviously, but that is the frustrating thing. Like, I almost wish someone would take this movie and remake it as something, for adults. I mean, they'd probably get sued for story theft or something, but it's ripe for the picking.
You literally could have made this a spiritual successor, or at least a this generation equivalent of V. There's a lot of potential here to turn this into an actual limited series, to where you explore things like V did. Because,
dude, yeah, I got serious, now that you mention it, Diana vibes off of Diane Kruger's performance as the Seeker. That's a great call. Yeah.
Right? I was getting that vibes, but we get because, as you mentioned, they probably gave very little money to this film. So you get silver cars and motorcycles and helicopters, and that's about it. You don't even really get a futuristic world. You get, these sprays that were based off of the stones from the Fifth Element. So there's just potential here for so much more, and it's not that, and that's what was frustrating for me. It's not that I think it's a horrible film by any means. I think it is just probably a prime example of wasted potential, and it hurt as a sci-fi fan, because I'm like, there's a lot of cool things you could do for a young audience and explore things that you just don't.
The director of this movie, Andrew Niccol, also, he's got some good credits to his name. He directed an underrated Nicolas Cage movie that I really like called Lord of War.
Yes, Lord of War is great.
He directed Gattaca.
Yeah.
He wrote The Truman Show. Like, that's just goes to solidify the crime here. Like, there's so much talent in front of and behind the camera that it's like, it's almost like a science experiment or a dare. Like, I bet I can get like all these great ingredients. I can get you filet mignon ingredients and still come off with a McDonald's cheeseburger.
His films up until The Host I enjoyed. He did Gattaca was out of the gate. He did Simone, which was a really interesting film. That's the one where it's the hologram, the actress that they create
Oh, yeah.
with the AI.
Al Pacino. Yeah.
Al Pacino. Very interesting sci-fi film that explores some really cool concepts that could be applied even more so today with Chat GPT and all of that. I mean, that film's probably more relevant today than it was in 2002. But he did Simone, he did Lord of War, he did In Time, which I actually enjoyed In Time quite a bit.
I don't think I saw that one.
That's the one where your life is your currency and everybody had the clock in their arm.
Oh, yeah, that was the Justin Timberlake thing. I never saw that one.
Yeah,
I don't think I did.
The Justin Timberlake film, which was actually when it first came out, was it in 2011? I'm like, oh, Justin Timberlake film? Oh. But I went to see it because it's sci-fi and I like the concept of your life being your currency for how long you live. And it ended up being a decent film. It was an interesting concept, some interesting social commentary and such. So you get all of that, and then you get The Host. And it's just like, this is so, compared to those 4 other bodies of work, this is so shallow compared to those. It's, if this maybe was his first film, I would see, but those other 4 films explore some really cool concepts and they actually set rules and explore them. And in here, they don't.
It could just be a matter of being a
source material.
Yeah, like a Universal Pictures wants to pay me how much to direct this thing that they're confident is going to be a franchise. All right. Just one note on the Timberlake thing. Have you ever seen Alpha Dog?
I have not, but I've heard about Alpha Dog.
Alpha Dog, great movie, great performance by Timberlake. Also, Amanda Seyfried's in it. She was also there together on In Time, and also Alpha Dog had an early performance from a very young Anton Yelchin. I think that was the first time. I think that was the first movie I remember seeing him in. So yeah, definitely check that out. But yeah, that's all I have to say about this movie.
No, we're done. We've gone long enough, I'm sure. But yeah, that's The Host. Even if you're a Twilight fan, I would say just watch Twilight, because this one is just there. This is literally a film that's just there. It is CW material. You are absolutely right. I think there too. This could easily be on CW. This film, and so yeah, it's unfortunate to see that potential just lost to superficial, superficialness, skin not skin deep, So there you have it, folks. The Host. A film I even struggled with, which doesn't happen too often. Thank you so much. I hope you found this discussion interesting. Yes, next week will be our official Perfect 10 episode where we're talking about Upstream Color, one I have not seen. It will be a first view for me, so that should be interesting. It was one that it was on my list. I never got around to seeing it, so looking forward to seeing what that is about. Hope you've been enjoying remote controlled summer or month, or as I should say, alien roofie month here. And now, as always, is when I give my wonderful host, co-host, the license to shill. So I'm just all over the place tonight. So, Ian, go ahead. The floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you, Mark. I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com. I also have a YouTube channel, which is Kicking the Seat. And do reviews and interviews and live streams. And speaking of which, Thursday at 8 p.m. Central, you can tune in to watch some of Earth's Mightiest Critics, of which Mark is a proud member and frequent guest. We're going to be talking about The Mandalorian, Episode 3, Season 3. And then at 8:45 p.m. Central, immediately following, doing a separate live stream about Scream 6, which should be a very fun conversation because I have a lot of things to say about Scream 6. And my opinion on the movie might surprise you.
Oh, so
but maybe not, since I gave it away. Yeah,
there's a tantalizing little tease for you there, folks. Yeah, no, don't let him. I'm just the guy that sneaks in the back, and then I'm the janitor of Earth's
I've
biggest
read that
crematorium.
about you.
You know?
What? No,
Yeah,
sorry.
Shh, shh. But
That's why you're
that's
the
what
alien roofie guy. What?
that's why I'm the alien roofie guy. We call this one the host. Anyway, so that's it, folks. We're done for the evening. And until next time, we'll just say good night, everyone.